All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the RS Sports Podcast. It's our first time ever broadcasting on YouTube. We're very happy to be bringing this to you. Something I've been doing, trying to go on YouTube for a while now, and it finally happened. We're still broadcasting on Anchor. We're still broadcasting on Spotify, but I thought I'd throw YouTube into the mix so that we have a live chat going. You can see I set up a set for you guys to be able to watch this on YouTube. So we're very happy to be bringing this to you. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, you know how this works. We go over today is our NFL show, and Friday is going to be our first NBA show. Again, right here on YouTube, you can find it. Spotify, Anchor, anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can also find it there. A little bit of a schedule change. The NFL playoffs are starting very soon. They're starting next week. So my NFL show is now going to be on a Wednesday, and my NBA show is still going to be on a Friday. It's just a little bit easier for me. I'll send out a time. If you follow my social medias, you will be able to find the time for the Wednesday show. This weekend's the wild card weekend, so I'll be going over that a little bit late, but I still want to bring you guys some content and give you guys a show on the wild card weekend, and then you know how the NFL works. We have the divisional round, conference championship, and then the Super Bowl in February, and I cannot wait for that. So with that said, with all the scheduling out of the way, let's hop right in to this week in sports. Week 17 finally over. This was a wild NFL season. The playoffs are set right now. Let me actually pull this up so I can give you guys what the playoff picture is looking like right now. Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up. But a lot going on this week in the NFL. A lot of teams that clinch the playoffs, obviously. So our schedule now, we have the Colts and the Bills this Saturday, as the Rams and the Seahawks, the Buccaneers in Washington, and that's all on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we have the Ravens and the Titans, the Bears and the Saints, the Browns and the Steelers. I'm trying to find seeding here. Here we go. So in the AFC, finishing out this season, we have the Chiefs at the 1 seed, the Bills at the 2 seed, the Steelers at the 3 seed, the Titans at the 4 seed, Ravens at 5, Browns at 6, Colts at 7, and in the NFC, we have the Packers at 1, the Saints at 2, the Seahawks at 3, Washington winning the NFC East at 4. We'll get to that in just a second. The Buccaneers at 5, and the Rams at 6. Bears at 7. So that is right. The Cardinals did not make the playoffs. The Bears and the Cardinals both finished 8-8. The Bears get the swing. They get the 7 spot, and they are now in the playoffs. So with all that said, I want to start this week in the NFL going over the Sunday night football game, because there's a lot of controversy going on with this Sunday night football game. It was the Eagles. They were playing Washington. And there was actually a lot of importance to this game. It was an NFC East matchup, so you might not think that there was a lot of importance because, we have Washington, who obviously won that division, and they're a losing team now. They don't have a winning record. But nonetheless, it was important because if the Eagles would have won this game, the New York Giants would have gotten the NFC East spot, and they would have knocked the Washington football team out of the playoffs. That did not happen. Washington won 20-16. But the controversial part about this is that the Eagles threw the game. They lost on purpose, and the reason that they did that was because they had the number 9 pick in the draft going into this game. They wanted the number 6 pick, so they decided that they would throw the game. They'd lose on purpose. Jalen Hurts was playing an absolutely great game. He was throwing for only 73 yards, but he rushed for 2 touchdowns before Doug Peterson pulled him. And he put his third-string quarterback in. He did many moves that indicated that, the Eagles were throwing the game. He went for it on, I believe it was 4th and 3, something like that, at their own 10 late in the game on their own side of the field, which, that's a no-no in NFL terms. You never do that in the NFL. Just a lot of things that were really evident that the Eagles were trying to throw the game, and they did throw the game. And that's where the controversy comes in. Now, my take on this, I don't like that at all. I think that's actually a disgrace to the NFL. You should be playing each game with integrity, and you should be playing each game to win. 3 spots isn't going to make that much of a difference. Actually, it might. I'll give the Eagles that. It might make somewhat of a difference moving from 9 to 6, but still, I think that if you are a team in the NFL, you should be playing to win week in and week out. You look at a team like the New York Jets, and I ragged on the New York Jets all year long because they basically threw away the number 1 pick. But what I admire about the New York Jets, what I respect about the New York Jets, is that they played to win every time, and they got 2 wins. Now, they're the number 2 pick in the draft. Some Jets fans might be upset about that. Some Eagles fans might be very happy that they now have the number 6 pick. I don't like the way the Eagles got the number 6 pick. I think that was actually sort of a disgrace to the league. And I just don't agree with it. And especially now when you're costing a team like the New York Giants a playoff spot, and they're a division rival, right? Imagine how confident the New York Giants are going to be going into the next game, because that's going to be the game they circle on the schedule next year, is that divisional matchup versus the Eagles. And that's a game I want to see now, because you saw many Giants players, they took to Twitter and they were unhappy, and rightfully so, about what went down Sunday night. And man, we hear a lot about this in the NFL all the time. We hear about teams that should throw the game, they should try to lose for the rest of the season. And I don't agree with that. I could never grasp the idea that a team should throw a game to get the number 1 pick in the draft and rebuild. I agree with rebuilding. I do agree with that part of the whole scheme, but I think you have to go about it the right way. I think when you're in a league like the NFL, a national league, you're being watched by millions of people each week, you should go in and you should try to win every single week. This week was no different. Nonetheless, Washington gets the playoff spot. They play the Buccaneers this Saturday, I believe. I believe it's this Saturday, the night game. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers versus Alex Smith, Chase Young, and the Washington football team. Just wanted to throw that out there and tell you what I thought about that. Moving on to the game of the Packers at the Bears. They were at Soldier Field. The Packers clinched the 1 seed in the NFC home field advantage. They finished the season 13-3. As I said, the Bears finished 8-8. I almost said 18-8, but there's not 26 games in the season. So the Bears finished 8-8. The Packers finish 13-3, get the 1 seed in the NFC. This was an okay game. I don't know how I feel, to be quite honest. I don't know how I feel about the Bears quite yet. I think that I would have rather. It's tough to say. I think that the Cardinals would have had a better shot at beating the Saints than I think the Bears would. And that's just my take. I think the Cardinals played a better season. I think that the Bears struggled a lot. But I also think Mitch Trubisky is picking it up late in the season. I think he had a terrible to the season, and that was pretty evident. But I think he's picked it up, and that's good. That's showing that he learned from his mistakes. He worked to get better, and he did get better. The Bears get the 7 seed. I don't know if that's going to last. We'll talk about my predictions in just a little bit. But nonetheless, the Packers get the win. They get the 1 seed and home field advantage. They asked Aaron Rodgers after the game. They said, what do you think about the home field advantage? And he said it doesn't really make a difference because of no fans. But he also said, the one thing that he's preaching to his guys is that they need to wear a mask in COVID-19. And, rightfully so. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is right there. We've already seen Kevin Stefanski. This was breaking news today. Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns, their head coach, I believe that said he had COVID-19 or he was in contact with someone that had COVID-19. So he will not be coaching this Saturday. That might make a difference. We will talk about that game a little bit later as well. But nonetheless, Packers get the win 35-16. Aaron Rodgers played a great game, continuing his MVP campaign for this season. Let's see. What else? The Rams defeated Cardinals. The Rams clinched the playoff berth. This was a win-and-in game. Rams won 18-7. And there were two backup quarterbacks playing in this game, surprisingly. Let me go to the stats here. But yes, two backup quarterbacks playing in this game. Kyler Murray got injured on the first drive of the game, and the Cardinals had to put their backup in. And their backup didn't really play well. But the Rams played decent with their backup quarterback. They gave me a lot to think about, especially moving into this Seahawks game. Is Jared Goff going to play? Is he not going to play? He has a broken thumb. We've seen Anderson in the chat. Can I call in? I'm trying to still figure out a way to have that happen. To call in, I can't do it on today's show. I'm very sorry. We're still a work in progress here, but I wanted to bring it in on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show, though. Anyway, the Rams, they get the win, 18-7. Kyler Murray did come back in the second half, but I feel like that leg injury just really, troubled him throughout the game. And I'm looking for the right word, but troubled is the right word, I think. It was bothering him all game, and I think that played a big role. Chris Streveler was in for the first half. He went 11 for 16, 105 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He did okay. Kyler Murray threw for 87 yards. Their leading rusher was Kenyon Drake, 10 carries, 36 yards, no touchdowns. And Dan Arnold was their leading receiver in yards. Only one touchdown was scored by Jonathan Ward. He caught that touchdown. And the Rams, John Wolford was their quarterback all game with Jared Goff breaking his thumb. He had a thumb injury. And he didn't play bad. I think he was playing before the NFL. He was playing. I will answer that question at the end of the show. Actually, I think he was playing okay. And he might be able to pull this off. The Seahawks playing this weekend. I'll talk about that again a little bit later. But in this game, I actually liked what I saw out of him. I think he was playing, and he looked like an experienced quarterback, which is a big plus for the Rams, especially again going into this weekend, playing the Seahawks in the wild card round. And that's a game I'm definitely going to have my eyes on. It's in Seattle, but Jonathan Wolford, if you're looking for if there's any NFL teams looking for a QB, and it could just be a backup QB, but if there's any teams looking for a QB, that might be your guy. I've only seen him for one game, but I liked what I saw. He looked very experienced. He looked very calm under pressure. They might have an answer there. I don't know if it'll be enough to get by the Seahawks. Again, we will talk about that a little bit later. Oh, I lost my scores here on my laptop. All right, no, we are back now. So Rams of the Cardinals, 18-7. The next game was another big playoff game with playoff implications. The Bills defeated the Dolphins 56-26. The Bills finished 13-3. The Dolphins finished 10-6. It was 56-26 was the final. The Bills have clinched the 2 seed, the highest playoff seed since 1993. Now, why this was important was that the Dolphins, I believe this is what it was. I believe if the Colts lost to the Jaguars, the Dolphins would have gotten in. If the Ravens would have lost, the Dolphins would have gotten in. But the Dolphins needed to win this game. Obviously, they did not. Josh Allen played one half, and it was pretty good. And Stephon Diggs played one half as well. And Stephon Diggs is over 1,000 yards for receiving this year. So congratulations to Stephon Diggs. Seems like he found a home in Buffalo. And Buffalo is going to be a tough team headed into these playoffs coming up. Josh Allen, needless to say, I'll say it anyway. I think it goes without saying, though, that Josh Allen just had a phenomenal year. I mean, the improvement from last year to this year is just amazing. We see him breaking out of the pocket a little bit more. We see him moving the ball downfield, completing the big passes. And I think Stephon Diggs had a lot to do with that this year. The acquisition of Stephon Diggs made the Bills so much better. We knew they had a good defense going into the season. We knew they were one of the best defenses in the league. You got Micah Hyde back there, Tre'Davious White as well. But the Bills, again, we knew they had one of the best defenses. We weren't too sure on Josh Allen, but and Josh Allen really, really improved, and I'm glad that he did. We have a comment. Lamar Jackson has a bigger breakout than Josh Allen. I don't know about that. This year, I don't know about that. I'm talking about the Ravens next, so that's actually a really good segue. Thank you for that comment. Moving into the next game, the Ravens beat the Bengals 38-3. The Ravens clinch. The Baltimore had a franchise record 404 rushing yards. But I want to go back to this person's comment. He did say that Lamar Jackson had a bigger breakout than Josh Allen this year, and I disagree with that because Lamar we all know is a great runner. The problem that I have with Lamar is that he has trouble throwing the ball. I need to see him improve throwing the football for me to say that he's better than Josh Allen. The improvement I saw out of Josh Allen was, I think, was greater than what I saw out of Lamar Jackson. We knew Lamar Jackson was a star last year. He had a great year. But I still think that Lamar Jackson has some trouble throwing the football. I think he can run tremendously. He's a great quarterback when it comes to running. But when you have Josh Allen, you have a sort of a dual threat. Josh Allen can get out of the pocket. He can scramble a little bit. He's not as fast as Lamar Jackson, but he can still scramble. Josh Allen can move the ball down the field. He can complete the big pass. He can get the ball. He's so, he throws the ball with so much power that he can get it over all these defenders, right? I think right now, if I'm looking at the league, I say that Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. And I would stick to that any day of the week right now, just because of how good Josh Allen has been playing. I think Josh Allen should have been in the running for the MVP. I think he's in the top 5 for the MVP. I hadn't looked at it. He may have been in the top 5. But I do think, to this person's comment, I think Josh Allen definitely had a bigger breakout this year than Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson develops a little bit of, if he can pass the ball just a little bit better, I might consider saying that Lamar Jackson has had a bigger breakout. But I'm going to stick with Josh Allen solely because Josh Allen can throw the ball as well. Derrick Henry is better than Josh Allen. That's a running back versus a quarterback, man. Derrick Henry's the best running back in the league. I'll give you that. But that's you're comparing a running back and a quarterback right there. Okay. So Ravens defeated the Bengals 38-3. They get into the playoffs. The Bengals went 4-11-1. I think there's a bright future in Cincinnati, though. I do. I think that Joe Burrow is going to be a good quarterback. I believe they picked up T. Higgins in the draft as well. And I think that that's going to be a big acquisition for them. And I think there's only positives from here for the Bengals. I don't want to say they're a playoff team next year. They got a lot of developing to do. I think they're on the upswing. I think that Joe Burrow is going to be good in this league. Then we got the 1:00 game that I really had my eyes on. This is going to be the last game that we're going to talk about for today. Browns over the Steelers, 24-22. The Steelers did not play Ben Roethlisberger in this game. Rightfully so. They knew they had a playoff spot. They were sitting Ben Roethlisberger. They didn't want him to get hurt. Nonetheless, the Browns win this game. They clinch a playoff spot. Congratulations to the Browns. They've been fighting for it for a while. They've been improving and improving and improving. Baker Mayfield is now in the playoffs for the first time in his career. You got Odell Beckham Jr. back in the playoffs. Jarvis Landry's in the playoffs. The Browns have a solid squad. That a little bit later when I go into the NFL playoff picture. Then 24-22, that's sort of a slim margin. The defense allowing 22 points with a backup quarterback. They actually played 2 quarterbacks. They played Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph. So I did talk about that. Cleveland coach Kevin Stefanski did get COVID-19. I did talk about that earlier in the show. That might actually have a big impact going into this weekend, even though it's just a coach that is going to be out. 24-22, though, the Browns get the win. A slim margin, but the Browns are in the playoffs. For this last segment, I do want to move into the NFL playoff picture. I want to give you my predictions for this weekend in the wild card. First game we got Colts, Bills. I'll give you a score line as well. I think that the Bills win this game by 7 over the Colts. Colts played an okay year, sort of up and down, but, I think that they should be able to hang with the Bills for a little bit. Overall, I think the Bills are the better team. They win by 7. Next, we got the Rams and the Seahawks in Seattle. If Jared Goff plays, I give this game to Seattle by 3. In Seattle, it's always tough to win in Seattle, especially in the playoffs, because Seattle's always a contender for that Super Bowl spot. You just never know what they're going to do with Russell Wilson and everything like that. Seahawks, yeah, so I'm going to give this edge to the Seahawks. If Jared Goff plays, I'm going to give him the edge to the Seahawks by 3. If their backup quarterback plays, I'm going to give this game to the Seahawks by 10. Next game, Buccaneers, Washington. This is in Tampa Bay, 8:15 p.m. on NBC Saturday night. Washington had a losing season. They played in the NFC East. I give this game to the Tampa Bay by 10 over the over the Washington football team. I mean, if I'm being honest with you, Washington's 7-9. I don't know how they made the playoffs. I mean, obviously with the division and everything, I'm giving the game to the Buccaneers by 10. Moving on to the Sunday games, the Ravens and the Titans. First of all, I don't know how they have this as an upset, because I had this going in as the Titans would be favored. I thought, but apparently not. Apparently the Titans are not favored. Apparently, if you're picking against the spread, this is an upset game. So I give this game to the Titans by 3 over the Ravens. Ravens season ends in the first round. Saints, Bears. I give this game to the Saints by, I would say probably by 7, only because of the Saints struggling lately in the playoffs. The Bears had a decent second half of the year. They started out their first 6 games were really strong, actually. They went on the downswing. They came back up, went 8-8. I still give this game to the Saints. And I think they win it by 7, because they're going to try and get back. They're trying to get back in to being one of the top teams in the playoffs. And they've just had some heartbreakers in the playoffs. And finally, our final wild card game, Browns at the Steelers, 8:15 p.m. Sunday night, NBC. And here's my second upset. Well, actually, I would count it as my first upset, but if we're picking against the spread, here's my second upset. I give this game to the Browns by 3. I like what the Browns have been doing. I think the Browns have a lot of confidence right now. I think the Steelers struggled a little bit on that back half of the season. This is a divisional matchup too. Anything can happen in a divisional matchup. I give this game to the Browns by 3, and those are my predictions for the NFL Wild Card Super Weekend. They're calling it. And I only had one upset. I'm staying with the spread the rest of the way. If we're picking against the spread again, I had 2 upsets. Rest of the way, I'm sticking with the Bills, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, Titans, the Saints, and the Browns to move on. And I could be wrong about the Browns game. The Steelers might surprise me. But I really think the Browns are going to win this game and upset the Steelers in the first round. So I think the Ravens and the Steelers are first round exits. And that's what I got for you today here on the RS Sports Podcast. Let's respond to some of these comments. Usain Anderson has been very he's said a lot of comments here. Do I think the Cowboys should draft a QB? No. I think they should keep Dak Prescott. You know who I think needs to go in Dallas? I think Jerry Jones needs to go. I think he's the problem. He's not gonna hire a coach that if the Cowboys end up winning the Super Bowl, it's not going to be with a coach that is going to make Jerry Jones look lesser than him, if that makes sense. Jerry Jones is going to hire a coach so that if the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, Jerry Jones gets more of the credit. That's what Jerry Jones wants. So I think Jerry Jones needs to go in Dallas. I think they should keep Dak Prescott. I like Dak Prescott. I feel like he's underrated. Let's see. What else? Bengals make the playoffs in 2021. That's a real possibility, actually. They're in a tough division. They're in the AFC North. That's always going to be a tough division. I think they gotta get a team around them first, though. I like Joe Burrow. I like T. Higgins. They had a great draft. They got to develop a little bit, though, first to be a good team. You can't draft somebody and you're automatically going to be good. Look at Kyler Murray last year. They didn't make the Cardinals didn't make the playoffs last year. This year they just barely missed the playoffs, and I had them as an underdog this entire season. And those are the comments that I have now that I responded to here on YouTube. And I think this first YouTube broadcast went well. Obviously, if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify, nothing really changed for you. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of the RS Sports Podcast. If you want to hear more podcasts just like this, tune in this Friday for our first NBA show right here on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. And starting next week, tune in every Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday will be our NFL show again. Friday will be our NBA show. I want to thank everybody for the support. And that's our show. That's what I have for you today. So again, if you enjoyed, tune into this podcast every Wednesday and Friday right here on the RS Sports Podcast.